Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to this session of Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committee being held and broadcasted on Tuesday, 12th of October 2021 at 5 p.m. So just before we begin, may I remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute themselves when not speaking using the mute button in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking. If a participant wishes to speak, can they please put their hands up either on the screen or using the icon? I'm sure they know this by now, or obviously use the raise hand function. So please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of this recording. The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues or to grab the attention of the chairman or democratic services officer. And finally, if any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, then they should let the chairman, myself, or democratic officer know. If they have webcam, they should try turning this off, as this will help with the broadband or Wi-Fi bandwidth, so they can at least they can hear and be heard. So thank you. And all that being said, let's move on to the meeting. So part one, apologies for absence. Amy.
Apologies received from Councillor Jarvie, Chair.
Thank you, Amy. I haven't heard anything else either. Has anyone else heard anything? No? Brilliant. Okay, on to agenda item 2, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of September. Does anyone want to bring up anything from those minutes, or are we happy to pass them as is? I don't see anyone.
Move on block, Chair.
Thank you, Janice. John, I see you got your thumbs up. Are we happy? Great. Okay, brilliant. And now we can move on to agenda item 3, receive declarations of interest. All quiet. Okay, brilliant. Now we can move on to agenda item 4, which is a block of 3. Well, there's 3 agenda items from the report of the Director of the Social Services. The first one being here, the Annual Social Services Representations and Complaints Report 2020-2021.
I know it says my name, but Natasha James will present both of the reports, if that's okay with you.
Hi, Natasha.
Hi, hello. Hello, so I'm Natasha James. I'm the Operation Manager for Safeguarding and Service Outcomes within Social Services, and complaints and representations sit within that service area of social services. So this is an annual report and update to scrutiny around the activity during period 2020-2021. So the report gives a bit of background in terms of our statutory responsibilities around complaints and guidance, Welsh Government guidance in terms of what we follow, and go through the various stages of complaints. There is some background in terms of communication methods and the role of the complaints officer. Within the report to yourselves, you can see there's some information in relation to the 3 areas of social services and the numbers of complaints that have been received, those which were resolved at a stage 1 point and those which went on to stage 2. And there's some detail around figures around that. There's also within that report some information just in relation to some of the priorities and areas for improvement for this part of our service going forward for 21-22. We've had some changes in personnel this year in terms of our complaints officer, who was a long-standing member of staff, I think 20 years service. So obviously that's taken some time to embed in a new member of staff. So we are working towards areas of improvement around timeliness of the completion of our investigations at stage 2, our use of independent investigators, and also how we embed learning from compliments and complaints into our service. So the appendix to this report is the annual report, which gives more detail in terms of those areas of compliments, complaints, specific numbers for service areas, and also in relation to timescales. It kind of gives more of more detail around the sources of those complaints, and you'll see there's an area around who submitted those complaints. And there's also some information around the type. It's very difficult to categorise sometimes types of complaints. So there are we've gone around the most common themes. So you'll see that there's some areas around charges for service, unhappy with care provided, communication. And you'll also see numbers that were resolved at stage 1 and those that went on to stage 2 complaints. But just as importantly are the compliments that are received for the service. And I think, with the pandemic and different ways of working and how we communicate with citizens, that's been a challenge. But people have provided their compliments and their thanks for the way in which services have responded to them or information that they've received. So we do try and capture all of that stuff and share that back into the service and the workforce as well. I don't know if you want me to go into any more detail or if there's any specific questions around that report or areas.
Thank you, Natasha. I'm sure if anyone has a question or would like a bit more detail, we can go via the questions. Hi, Councillor Thomas. I see Johnny, I got your hand up first.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Natasha. Just looking at the report, it looks like good news. It's less complaints than last year. It's a job to know really how COVID would have affected it, whether it would have meant there would have been more complaints due to COVID or less. But my question really is, and you may not be able to answer it, but it's the like almost what I'm looking for is a percentage of complaints to the workload of the departments. Because when you look at this, you see a number and you could think, oh, that looks quite high. But I don't think people generally looking at it would appreciate how much work the department actually does and how small an amount these complaints are. And that's the way I'm looking at it. But I don't know whether you can give us any information on that. I know it's probably impossible to give figures because it's a very difficult thing to quantify. But perhaps you could just enlarge on that a little. Thank you.
Yeah, I suppose it is almost nigh on impossible for me to quantify because it's a changing landscape as well, isn't it? So day on day, month on month, there will be people who have short-term service from us or support and will have longer term support. There's also people who want to talk about a moment in time from a service that they're receiving, and that can be very difficult to quantify. What we can say is we offer a service to a vast number of people, and there are, for this area of work, there are very specific criteria under the guidance of what can be a complaint, the types of issues that we can consider as complaints, and equally there's things within that we can't consider as complaints. Examples being where there are maybe court proceedings in relation to a family or a child. So I can't give you, in proportion to the number of people that we provide support or a service to, the number of 57 could be relatively small because it would be impossible for me to do that. I'm really sorry, but
no, I didn't expect any more. I just had to ask the question, really.
Yeah, that's probably the best that I could give you.
Yeah.
At this.
Thank you.
I suppose the important thing is people, that the awareness of how to complain or provide a compliment is known and understood by people, and we fulfil our responsibility to make sure people have access to that opportunity to have their voices heard and for us to respond in the way that we should.
Lance, do you want to jump in before Councillor?
Yeah, I was just if that was okay, I wish I had my director's report open in front of me, because it does describe some of that, not in probably the detail that you would want, but it does describe the number of service users who get different types of services and how they've increased. So, I can give you an example off the top of my head with approximate figures. So, if you think of the number of people who get domiciliary care, that's about 1,100 now, and it was about 1,000 last year. So that gives you an idea of that. There's hundreds in care homes in the Vale, and we know that there's best part 300 children looked after currently. So you get a kind of flavour of some of the numbers, but I think I'd refer you back to the director's report for that. There's a graphic in there which has got a good set of the numbers that we actually support and see. And maybe next time when I bring that, which will probably be, I guess, June next year, we can go through some of that then.
Good. Thanks, Chairman. So can I make one other point? And that is, I'm really pleased to see the compliments in there. I think it was a couple of years ago I asked about compliments and whether they were recorded, because a member of our family was receiving care from the council, and we're very grateful for what they were receiving, and the paid compliments, but they didn't appear to be coming back to members. So it's great to see that actually included in the report. So yeah, well done. Thanks very much.
Great, thanks, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Nugent-Finn, hi there.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Natasha and Nance, for all of the updates. I think that the figures actually speak volumes because of resolution at stage 1 being actually very low, but I think particularly stage 2 being even lower. So I think that in itself, for me, speaks volumes. And to pick up on what Councillor Thomas was saying earlier about, perhaps it's very difficult to quantify in terms of going through the pandemic and everything else. In my opinion, actually, I think it probably put the spotlight more on this, certainly in my industry and what I've been doing as an elected member, because your services have been absolutely inundated. So if we're sort of presenting stats at this stage like this, I think things can only get better and better. I feel that your complaints service is very well communicated, but again, like everybody else is saying here tonight, maybe we should really push the compliment service, because they should go hand in hand, because it's the only way we can evidence these things, isn't it? When you obviously going forward with regards to future funding from Welsh Government or all your other funding streams, we really do need to capture that, and give a very, very balanced approach to how we're delivering this frontline service and how we continue to. So yeah, huge thanks, and a massive compliment from me. So you can put that in the box. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. Councillor Thomas, hi there.
Hi, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to sort of support what my fellow councillors have been saying, in that the figures of for the complaints are in the sort of low mid 10s and the 40s, and yet we are dealing with thousands upon thousands of in the thousands of people every day, and some in daycare, some in domiciliary care, some in residential care. We're supporting so many people across the piece, and if we're only getting 40 odd, from what I've read it, 40 odd complaints, that's kind of a compliment to the service in itself, in that must be getting it right. Otherwise, we'd be getting shouted at a lot more. In terms of the compliments, I agree with John Thomas that it's nice to see them coming to us, and I hope they're given prominence around the offices and whatever for the staff that are the staff that are getting, and B, for the teams that are involved as well, because I realise that at the moment everyone is feeling very, very tired and very, very hard. Most people are struggling, particularly on the front line, with the workload that they had, and particularly over the COVID. And I wanted to compliment the report writers on this report, because it is very easily read and informative, and B, the staff on the efforts to fill the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Okay, do we have anyone else who would like to ask Natasha a question? I know I got Councillor Thomas's hand up in case Councillor Finn, but I believe both have gone. Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to echo what everyone said, really, around the compliments and the work has been done to keep everything going, and it's so brilliant, great work. Lance, I see you got your hand up on the last stretch there. Hey.
I wasn't gonna say it, but I think I probably should. That I still think the compliments is an underrepresentation of the number of compliments we receive, and I don't know whether it's something about social care staff and that they expect, or that maybe not expect compliments. I mean, but they feel that their expectations are upon them to do a good job, and so when somebody says thank you, they don't, or that you've done an amazing job, they don't do anything with it. They keep it to themselves, and I think so. I think we're massively underreporting it, and I think I can't remember. I think it was Councillor Thomas had said about whether we were prominent in terms of reporting those. Everyone that comes through to me, I make a point of contacting the member of staff and their team manager, and I'm aware that in one of our teams, a community resource service, prior to COVID, this was because they had to move out of the where they were, but they had a whole wall covered with cards and compliments, essentially, that the manager made sure everyone could see, and they were all there. And I remember going up there once saying, how come we've only got 20, 30 compliments? I can see 100 up here. So I'm really confident we're underreporting, and we will continue to try and get it as accurate as possible. But I'm sure there's I don't know, embarrassment. I don't know, maybe I don't know what it is, but it's people just pleased to be able to get on with their jobs.
Modesty,
maybe, yeah, maybe. But they do an incredible job, and I think we should do everything we can to make sure that we celebrate that and share that news. So thank you anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. I'm sure everyone agrees with that, and the sentiments. A great point. Okay, moving on to recommendations. So we have two recommendations for this report. That number one we considered, and we scrutinised it and discussed it, so that's great. And we should continue to receive this annual report on a yearly basis. Are we all happy with that?
Yeah, happy to move the recommendations, Chairman.
Second.
Thank you both Thomases. Brilliant. Thank you, Natasha. That was cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, just bear with me a second. Let me move back to the agenda. Now we're on to item 5, which is the Citizen Engagement Annual Report. Who's taking this on?
It's me again. It's Natasha Jones again. And yes, again, this area of business, which is around some of our consultation engagement work with citizens to ascertain their experiences of services that they're receiving. So in some ways that you may find some more detail about people expressing their feelings about the services they've received in this report, but how we then consult and engage with citizens in order to shape our services and understand the experiences of people within the Vale of Glamorgan. And we with this one, I don't know, I hope you've all been able to access this SWAY report, this embedded within the main body of the report. I don't know if you have or not. But that report kind of gives you a sense of the activity that's happened. And it hasn't been easy this year to do that. The way in which we do that, we like to do a combination of, service specific questionnaires or meeting with individuals or postal questionnaires going out to people. And that's been a bit of a challenge. However, I think we've been able to overcome that and have continued with this work. So the main report talks about the areas that we're consistently measuring the quality of our information advice and assistance. Through this area of work, we are identifying areas of good practice and those areas where we need to make improvements. And also with this reporting period, we did try to look at the impact of COVID and how that had affected people's support they were receiving or the communication with staff or with our services. So within the in the annual report, you'll see lots of kind of anecdotal and quotes from individuals about things that they were very positive about, and then some of those areas that we would need to look at to see how could we do that differently, or how could we make that experience better for individuals. There are, again, areas that we have to do that this activity supports, and that's in terms of some of the areas for our residential care homes and engaging with residents within residential care homes. Some of that has continued, and that's continued through virtual means and through online questionnaires where possible. And it has been quite a shift for a lot of people moving into remote means of communicating. And some of the feedback that we've had through consultation engagement are that there's a really nice quote, I think, in the Sway report around, I'm willing to engage in technology because I want to, engage with my peers. I want to have that support that's being offered. But I think we understand that can't be the only way in which we communicate and support people. In terms of service development, how we approach this is that we look at, they are service area specific, some of the engagement activity and consultation work. So that work then, we look at the themes, we look at the recommendations, and then that's fed back into either specific services or teams to look at what was the feedback from that consultation or engagement activity, and what do we need to do on the basis of that feedback, to ensure that if people are taking the time to feedback on our services and tell us about their experiences, that we're actually doing something with the information that they're providing us. I don't know, in terms of the Sway report, I do hope you've been able to access that. And if you've got any specific questions around this area of work or anything in more detail that you'd like me to go into.
Thank you, Natasha. Again, anyone got any questions that we can take it from there? I think sounds like
Rachel's got a hand up.
Has she? Hi, Rachel.
She has on my attendees list. Oh, no, it's just gone down again, I think.
I don't have my hand up. Thank you anyway, Councillor Thomas, Neil. I don't know. Thanks anyway.
Okay, so I'll just go through the recommendations then. So consider the context and structure of the social services citizen engagement report. We considered the methods employed when we obtained the views of the citizens and their families. Consider the improvement priorities for the service areas as highlighted by the recommendations within the annual report. And finally, we consider the impact of what COVID-19 has had on the service. Hi, Councillor Thomas. See your hand up.
In line with what you just read out, I'll move the recommendations. I just again like to say again, it's a very good, coherent, readable report with a lot of interest in it. Some of the stuff on the comments being made and some of the compliments that are in here as well are worth looking at and noting. And thank you. So thank you again, Natasha. Job well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as I said, I move the recommendations.
Great, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Yes, I'm happy with the recommendation. Anyone would like to second Councillor Neil Thomas's? I'm happy to do so if see Julia's got her hand up as well. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you. Bye,
Uh,
everyone. Thank you.
Have a great evening. Thanks for your help. Okay, and now we can move on to agenda item 6, which is the revenue and capital monitoring report for the period between 1st of April and 31st of April 2021. Hi, Carolyn.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the position we're reporting as at the end of August is a slight deterioration from the previous report. We have shown children's services about the same as the time before. However, this time we are showing adults with an overspend of £500,000, therefore bringing the projected total overspend for the committee as 1.15 million as at the end of the year. I think we always say that the projection of the adult services community care packages, which is where the overspend is showing, is a very difficult area to predict. As you can imagine, there's numerous, thousands of people. The care packages change constantly during the year. People go in and out of hospital, potential winter pressures. So it is difficult, but we're showing £500,000 at the moment. Usually we do get some grant from the Welsh Government, so we have sort of slightly projected that we might use some of that to help out. But at the moment, as I say, we're saying 1.15 overspend, potentially at year end. The report also goes on to look at capital schemes. So on the capital schemes, we have some reports of some additional grant funding. And also we've got some reports of where some schemes have increased in cost. We've gone through and identified where we've been able to either via the funding or allocate some additional resources. And they're all listed in the capital section of the report. So, I mean, that's a brief summary. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Carolyn. Would anyone like to ask any information on this item? Hi, Councillor Thomas.
Hi, thanks, Chair. Yeah, hi, thanks, Carolyn. Again, a clear report, but within the report, when we're talking about overspends on the adult and on the children and young people sections of the budget, it's how much of that do we think is being moved by COVID and in response to that, and the lack of contact, the lack of income perhaps as well from some sources, and the extra demand?
Yeah, that's fine. They're obviously, I mean, Lance will pick up a few points, but just to point out that there obviously is great demand on the service, both on children's and from on the adult services. But I point out to you that Welsh Government are providing a hardship grant, and where possible we are making claims against that hardship grant, and those claims have been taken account of in these figures. So for instance, on children's services, we are able to claim through the COVID hardship grant for some funding of costs. So for instance, where some children due to COVID have had breakdowns perhaps in foster placements and have needed to go into residential placements, we've been able to justify that to the Welsh Government, and we've had some funding for that. Also where some foster placements are full and we've had to put some children into IFAs, we've also been able to get that additional cost from Welsh Government. So where possible, we are claiming. Again, going forward, that might be a pressure on the service which Welsh Government might not support perhaps after April, but we have been successful so far this year. Also, we are getting funding from Welsh Government at the moment for voids, but that amount is tapering off between now and the end of the financial year. And also we have been getting an amount per bed in a residential home, £1 an hour for domiciliary, and also a rate for supported accommodation. But again, that is tapering off between now and the end of the year. So we have, the position I'm showing is net of those figures from Welsh Government. However, if the demand carries on post 1st of April or even later on in the year, that will be more problematic for us. Hand over to Lance.
You've covered most of what I was going to say, actually, Carolyn. So I didn't expect you to, but I suppose it was just to children's has well, in fact, and in adults hasn't been static throughout the last 18 months. It's varied hugely, and I think at the beginning of the pandemic we saw demand drop away as families looked after their relatives more, and then I think as the recovery has continued, we've seen demand increase. Currently in children's services, our demand levels are back up to where they were pre-COVID, but obviously in the last probably 12 months we've seen the demand much higher, and so that's left the legacy that you can see here. And I suppose we've been limited in terms of the availability of other services. So normally we'd have had people going into leisure centres and going into into schools and so on, and obviously throughout COVID those haven't been open in the same way. So we've seen a lot of our services affected like that as well. Carolyn, did you mention the recovery fund? I don't think
No, I didn't.
Did. So we also have a fund from Welsh Government, which has been recently announced to assist with our recovery. Again, that money is still yet to be determined where we will allocate it all, but these figures were cognizant of the fact that we had that money coming in. So it's not that that's suddenly going to offset all of this. It will help, but it won't deal with it all.
Great. Councillor Gray?
Thank you, Chair. And just picking up from where Lance left off, I think it's important to understand that at the moment recovery money is a one-off, and actually how long it will take us to recover and what we can assign to an impact from COVID is going to be a very hard thing to determine. And it may well be there are continuing pressures beyond the time that official recovery money covers, but I hope as we move forward with some of our integrated health and social care plans, we can look to a stable core funding for social care that ultimately can underpin this. But we wait to see the impact of whatever monies come down from the NI increase next year, and how Welsh Government look to distribute that, if it's in a similar manner to UK government in terms of dealing with backlogs in the NHS first as opposed to directly in social care. We'll see, but my hope is that there'll be a recognition that the recovery is going to take longer than this one-off period that we need that extra funding for. So hopefully we'll be able to report something back further when the budgetary position is clear, and as we go towards some of our conversations about budget and the pressures that are going to be possibly coming forward for social care. I think it's worth that we keep this in mind, and I look forward to Scrutiny's vision of that and how we can incorporate that into our budget.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gray. Does anyone else have anything they would like to say or anything to comment on what's just been mentioned there? Okay. We have one recommendation here, which is that we consider the position with regard to the 2021-22 revenue and capital budgets. Are we happy to move that recommendation?
Move the recommendation.
Thank you. And I'm happily... Well, Councillor Thomas put his hand up, so we do that on behalf. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Carolyn. Thank you for presenting the report. Okay, we are finally on to agenda item 7, which is the second quarter scrutiny recommendation tracking 2021-22 and updated committee forward work programme schedule 2021-22. It's a long sentence to say. So this is something that I shall be presenting to the Scrutiny Committee here on behalf of Democratic Services. So we have two recommendations. So we need that we agree that the actions listed in Appendix A is correct and so forth, and then that the work progress schedule in Appendix B should be considered for approval and uploaded to the council website. So we'll go through Appendix A quickly then. So as you can see, we have a few items here which have status of completed, and then in Appendix B, then on the forward work program, it's in the whole pretty much similar. There's two presentations that have been moved to 2022, which it mentions in point 2.3. So that's all I have. Does anyone would like to comment on what we have and if we need to shuffle anything around? Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, it's not so much shuffling anything around, but Chair, as you've been part of, there has been some discussion about the workload and about the number of things we have on our forward work programme and whether they are actually what we want to see there. And can I invite committee to take away with them some the idea of sort of looking at this forward work programme and looking to see if there's any they can justify in taking off, or perhaps asking for written reports in a different form, or rather than presentations or anything like that. Anything that the committee members consider would be an improvement to the situation, rather than have this, which is actually a very, very big workload over the year. I know today's hasn't been, but some meetings are very, very heavy. Thank you.
I second what Neil said. I think it's something that we need to look at all scrutiny committees as well, how what we scrutinise and what is more informational as opposed and potentially could be in a different vehicle. I don't know if anyone has any comments, but like Neil said, it's something to take away more than anything. Hi, Councillor Nugent-Finn.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, wholeheartedly agree with you, Neil. I'm more than happy to. I've got some suggestions actually, but I'll sort of do it a bit more formally and perhaps send them through to yourself and Councillor Griffiths, and
maybe we can just have a short slot at the next meeting.
Absolutely,
which has already got well, we'll be doing forward work programme. There'll be an opportunity at that point to say, should we remove this? Should we change that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that all right? If that's all right with Chair?
Yeah, that's great. I yield to more people's experience. Amy.
Hiya. Can I just confirm, committee, that we're talking about, because obviously we do have the November items to consider on our agenda as formal content for that. Would it be appropriate for us to have a discussion prior to that meeting starting?
I'd have thought just to it at that meeting. When we get to this bit, because we do this at every meeting, right?
Yeah.
No, we don't. I'm afraid this report is quarterly.
Oh, of course it is. Okay.
We'd obviously want to keep the discussion and any decisions relevant to an agenda item, but because we're all logging on in advance, we can certainly bring any thoughts and have a discussion with myself before the meeting starts, if that would be okay. Because we're all together in the room then, aren't we, for a few minutes before we start? So it just seems like a good opportunity.
So long as some communication happens. Yeah, that suits me. Yeah, as I say, it's just that, for the scrutiny committee to actually take some responsibility for what we're putting on these things. I mean, they're all on there because we've been speaking about it, and we do need to start taking some of these things off because we're not using them. Then they're actually holding things up rather than informing us. So. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think anyone who would like to be in that discussion, we can, open discussion before the meeting and so forth. Yeah, we can definitely set that up.
No problem, Chair. Well, the meeting room will be open from 4:30. So if members wish to join us to pass on any comments on their thoughts, then we'll be here from that time ready, and then we can continue with the meeting at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, thank you, Amy.
Fantastic. Okay, Lance.
Sorry, because that sounded a bit informal. I suppose there are some reports that it may not be immediately obvious why they're coming, and they may be something that CIW are expecting there to be oversight with, or something like that. So I don't know whether I can be involved in that meeting, and whether we need to set it up as a, if you like, a half-hour meeting that we have prior to scrutiny committee, just so that I'm definitely included. If that's right, just to advise. I appreciate.
Yeah, I think we
need
definitely
members
need
to set it, but
I assumed you were going to be there.
Yeah, no problem, Lance. I'll make sure that you're with us from 4:30.
Maybe just have a separate invite to the meeting, and have it as I mean, it's not particularly a scrutiny meeting, but it is a discussion around what we're doing, and we could do that.
Just a bit of a workshop.
Yeah. That's that. Yeah, call it a workshop, half-hour workshop before the meeting, and invite everyone.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
Perfect. Okay, so back to this agenda item as we are. So I've listed the 2 recommendations. Does anyone have any questions regarding or we're happy that what we have is correct and what's coming up?
Do we usually propose that we scratch out the completed items, Chairman?
Yes, Councillor Thomas. So those items that are marked as completed now will obviously be removed from the tracking documents. So obviously we don't have, they won't be going forward because they're marked as completed now.
Yep, that's fine. Thanks.
Okay.
Recommendation then.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, and I'll go ahead and second it. If that's good. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, everyone. That was good discussion.
Chair.
Hi.
Chair, with your permission, seeing as it's a very
Sure.
short meeting and with everybody else's agreement, could I read a very small poem? I'd like to dedicate it to patients with dementia, but also to a lot of our frontline staff. It's obviously not agendaed; it can come under any of the business, but it's just a really lovely poem that I think it really encapsulates what we're doing here in the Vale of Glamorgan. And as I said, it's sort of double-edged with regards to people suffering dementia, but also the carers, caregivers, and every sort of frontline staff member we have. If we're in agreement, because it's a shorter meeting, this would be a great time. If not, it can wait.
So I'm fine with that. Is everyone okay just to listen in? And we'll give Rachel the stage.
Are we all okay with it? It's just a small
Yes.
poem.
Sure.
Thank you. It's called Blessed. Blessed are they who understand my faltering step and shaking hand. Blessed are they who know my ears today must strain to hear the things they say. Blessed are they who seem to know my eyes are dim and my answers are slow. Blessed are they who look away when my tea was spilled at the table today. Blessed are they who care with a cheery smile, who stop for a chat for a little while. Blessed are they who never say, you told me that story twice today. Blessed are they who know that in my ways bring back memories of my yesterdays. Blessed are they who ease the days and care for me in loving ways. And blessed are they who make it known I'm loved, respected, and not alone. It's an unknown author, but I thought it was particularly beautiful and very apt poem. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. That was great.
Thank you.
Very much. So on agenda item 8, I do not have any items that I deem urgent, and that is same with agenda item 9. So the only thing I have left is the date for the next meeting. What do we have, Amy?
Yes, next meeting, Chair, is 9th of November.
Okay, brilliant. 9th of November at 5 p.m. as
Yep.
always.
Yep, and you'll receive 2 invitations now, for the workshop prior and then for the meeting itself.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening and rest of the week.
Okay.
Take care.
Yeah, enjoy your evening. Night night.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye
Chair.
all.
Bye-bye.